Today, I will deliver books to school, but they say poverty is bitter. Just after school, my old worn-out bike was nowhere to be found. Your dad's bike was in such a state, yet they took it. I immediately reported it to the security guard. My bike has been stolen by them. However, after seeing the desolate look with sad eyes, it seemed like it had been kicked by my boyfriend. I can quietly find a way to prepare a new bike myself and then sell it. Without bait, how can you lure a wolf? Immediately after selling it in the middle of the street, it seemed that within moments there were two greedy guys who wanted to touch and feel. While TRANNAC stood inside watching everything as if he didn't show up, to let them lead to the den and catch them all, they followed to a small area for buying and selling materials. Inside, a bald-headed guy stood crookedly, exactly as claimed to be the new bike type. It's still original, but they want to buy it at the old price. Despite being a new type of bike, they dare not whisper to this big guy. Suddenly, the fence outside was creaking, while TRANNAC was freely indulging in his passion for climbing the fence. The bald guy hurriedly went out, sneeringly changed places to play elsewhere with the kids. This made him sigh. It's like an invitation to drink wine, but then you want to drink wine as a punishment. A rope appeared from inside the shirt and then pushed the door in. Don't forget to close it to prevent them from escaping. Seeing this attitude of TRANNAC, the bald guy glaringly demonstrated himself as a big brother. But TRANNAC didn't care about his twisted arms. He kindly stayed here. He quietly asked where your family's safe was hidden. So that guy introduced himself as a big brother, long-standing in the business. When he was young, he tasted prison food for 2 years. Then luckily got to know and study under an old master. When he went out, he did legitimate business, sitting cool and eating gold. Ghosting swords. Unexpectedly, today made him bleed while holding a crowbar ready to swing down a blow. But as soon as he cackled, he was immediately wrapped around the leg by his chain, then pulled away like pulling a cart to find an egg. At the intersection, there was a crackling sound, making it cry out in pain. It was extremely miserable. Just looking at it makes you feel sorry. You can only reveal the money in your pocket, making your eyes sparkle. After seeing him leave, he called his gang. You lot, stop fooling around and get back here now. Our house has been robbed. Despite this, he didn't bother to go himself and just sat idly by the roadside stalls, facing the place where bicycles were being bought. While leisurely counting money inside, a few friends were enough to live on for a few days. Just after finishing eating, he spotted a bike parked with a frog sticker in front of the training ground, making him smirk. Finally, his wait paid off as he immediately rushed them, causing chaos, then checked on the situation of his gang leader if he could still maintain his lineage. He was bitter when his face was still green because the money, $60,000, was meant for buying motorcycles within 2 days. A guy asked if a kid seemed harmless or not, then just gestured to go outside. TRANNAC flashed his wicked smile. Baby, I'm back. Causing the guy to squint in frustration, then ordered his gang to attack and close the door to block his escape route. However, they didn't know they were blocking their own way of living. TRANNAC was surrounded, and a guy with a bloody towel rushed forward with a wrench in his hand. But TRANNAC simply grabbed him, easily breaking his arm, leaving the bald guy behind, his eyes bulging in fear. Play stupid, then face the consequences. Armament Plato. All were stacked neatly, with the guy who taunted having a split forehead and his black eyes receding. But before he could play, he ordered his henchmen to come to heat up the situation, making the guy bow his head and beg while crying, Boss, I know I was wrong. Please spare us a way to live. We've taken the money, he's injured. Why are you so cruel to us? Seeing this, TRANNAC didn't bully the kids anymore and requested, as he was fed up with his own bike, making him seem like he struck gold when he found a top-notch authentic Yamaha bike from Japan. Folding his hands with a radiant face, Sir, are you satisfied? Yet, he remained silent, seeming unsatisfied, almost scaring the birds away. But he was actually just asking for a helmet, needing a high-quality one made of cotton fabric to prevent fogging for night rides. Seeing that he understood, TRANNAC let it go. This time, He just hated bald guys with hair and didn't want to appear tough in front of kids, making the guy cry his eyes out. "Boss, my hair fell out naturally. No man Thuongquan supported me to get hair transplants." While he was driving his supercar, he spotted the familiar figure of the lovely girl. He, the frog, teasingly said, "Want to go for a ride with me, beautiful?" But he was shot down. "What, are you crazy? It's like -10 degrees out here. No way, I'm freezing to death." As per his habit of scanning his surroundings, he noticed the beautiful brooch pinned on her chest, a gift from his mother's friend who had visited KHAKKHA. He thought it was just an ordinary gift, but he could immediately tell it was from the Clip Apples line, worth only a few $100s in today's salary era, yet someone had given such an expensive branded item. After sprinkling some flattery, he took out a box of food from his jacket and handed it to KHAKKA before speeding away. At the same time, a girl was standing in front of the mirror, muttering to herself. Obviously, she wasn't talking to a ghost, but was actually Delm practicing his greetings to all his classmates. He, a new transfer student, while his elder brother was eavesdropping outside, was actually looking for TRANNAC at school. At that moment, the homeroom teacher was working, but KHAKHA came to deliver lunch, ostensibly to let him eat outside comfortably, but actually sat down at the desk to work, intentionally writing the class list, arranging for him and TRANNAC to be in the same class. After the last exam period, the homeroom teacher couldn't help but praise him, although recently, he had only copied his friend's work, not actually studying anything. The teacher was worried about a high school student taking care of his little sister, so he suggested sending her to kindergarten, which would be more convenient for TRANNAC's studies. While they were talking, they saw KHAKHA's mother returning from work for the first time, and they were introduced properly. Seeing the children worriedly outside the gate, facing the impending war, she glanced at Taiudiep, who was trembling, and reassured him. She promised that from Monday to Friday, she would stay here until the end of the day, ensuring to pick up her little sister first and then taking care of him. Finally, they ended up being in the same class. He reluctantly sat next to a weirdo, though he secretly enjoyed it but pretended to be surprised, not wanting him to sit beside him. As soon as the head teacher arrived, he immediately divided the students into two groups and arranged TRANNAC to sit at the back of the class so he could dominate. At this moment, there was a kid flipping through the class's book, hoping that the student with the lowest grades wouldn't affect him. However, looking at the notebook of that kid, TRANNAC remarked, "I personally prefer Bakma Ki Tai Fong, a novel, more." This comment made the kid gleeful unexpectedly, not expecting to meet someone from his circle in this class. So after school, TRANNAC went straight to the nursery to pick up Taiudiep. But upon seeing him, her eyes filled with tears, making TRANNAC burst with joy, fearing that his little sister, on her first day of school, had been bullied. But in fact, she was just relieved that he had come to pick her up, fearing he would never come for her. So the two siblings went to the temple together. On their way back to school to return the bicycle, TRANNAC saw a very cute girl and immediately took out his chocolate to lure her, which she gladly accepted. This adorable act made LATANA jealous, knowing that she didn't have such cute siblings. Recalling the time when they had to beg their parents to find her dad so they could be siblings, they had planned to visit KHAKHA's house to eat heartily. But unexpectedly, the head teacher had to work overtime, so they couldn't go home early. Therefore, they went out to explore the world together. They went to an internet cafe to play games. While TRANNAC went to the restroom, a group of drunk people came in. Among them was the crooked-nosed guy who TRANNAC had previously sent packing. Yet, coincidentally, he met KHAKHA again. In the meantime, while teasing and joking, TRANNAC had finished comforting Guyot. After solving his emotional turmoil, when he stepped out, he saw his little sister looking scared. He quickly embraced Hangtu and asked with deep concern, "Have you just been discharged from the hospital?" Suddenly, someone barged in, making him almost curse, seeing the friendly face of TRANNAC. The guy with the sunao hairdo didn't know what he was doing and pointed his finger everywhere. Immediately, LATHANA jumped in. Which jerk dares to mess with my buddy? Come out here and face me. This made the troublemaker bolder, but he didn't notice the sudden change in his big brother's expression, which turned as sour as someone with a decade-long constipation. Yet LATHANH didn't need to throw fists. Just mentioning his father was enough to intimidate them. If you got something to say it now. In the blink of an eye, their attitude changed 180 degrees. Now flattering and quickly leaving, just a misunderstanding, they claimed. But they couldn't run that easily. The troublemaker pulled out his moves, passed down, quick to call for backup. As LATANH signaled his master, someone was ready to take on the troublemaker. The giant, bigger than a bear playing cards, stood up, asking, "You dare touch my baby brother's hair?" Immediately, LATHANH pointed to the troublemaker, but he feigned ignorance. In the middle of the commotion, attempting to calm things down, using his boss's name, he got slapped hard, turning 180 degrees, straight to the hospital for the second time. But it wasn't that easy to let him off. They gave him a beating. Despite their efforts to intervene, using the boss's name, they were promptly knocked down, then kicked out of the restaurant. Afterward, many came forward to LATHANH, offering assistance, saying, "Just call me sweetheart." But when turning to TRANNAC's group, they humbly acknowledged, this playground belongs to the little guy's family. Yet, they were extremely humble, vowing to help anytime, now that they were brothers. TRANNAC didn't expect this kid to be the boss's son, as his influence was well known in the area. He had started as a mere sand laborer, but later, through ups and downs, became a powerful figure. But it ended tragically when bigger forces took notice. Meanwhile, LATHANH was discreet, not using his status to coerce, remaining a genuinely kind kid. When taking KHAKHA home, they didn't see the head teacher anywhere, even though all the lights at school were off. TRANNAC asked her to look after TIEUDIEP for the night, as he had work to attend to, then left without further explanation. And as expected, the head teacher was where he had anticipated, sitting in a corner, lost in thought, smoking his cigarette. Upon seeing a man with the last name Deo stepping out, the head teacher immediately approached. Witnessing them conversing, TRANNAC couldn't help but wonder what the head teacher was up to. In that moment, he handed the Deo guy a briefcase, only to be shoved away, causing the money inside to spill out, and he was cursed as trash, leaving the head teacher seething with rage. Promising to make things right, he was left defeated as the car drove off into the distance, leaving him to sit despondently on the ground. KJKJ's mother quickly pedaled over to assess her husband's condition, further fueling the head teacher's growing anger. He was on the verge of lashing out, but restrained himself, sighing heavily instead. Both of them then headed back home, leaving behind a heavy atmosphere. Indeed, things were turning out differently from what TRANNAC had imagined. The next day, someone arrived with a loudspeaker and banners, demanding that the head teacher pay his debts. This attracted numerous students to come and watch, making KHAKGG turn pale with fear. Unexpectedly, her father was involved in this ordeal, not running away or fearing retribution. The head teacher then produced the briefcase he had prepared the night before, handing it over, reminding them that this was a school and not a place for disturbances. With the money taken, they left, achieving their goal of tarnishing the head teacher's reputation, before retreating. 2 days later, they returned, worrying KHAKHA. Seeing her father endure this, she surely didn't want her daughter to witness such disgrace. After that incident, there were countless rumors and ridicule from the students. The head teacher's dignity, built over a lifetime, collapsed in an instant. This became the hot topic for the students to discuss, making it impossible for him to stay. He had to ask permission to return home with TRANNAC. TRANNAC then asked LATHANX to help him with 2 tasks, to see where the debt collectors were and to skip class. Despite the bold assertion, TRANNAC doubted anyone would believe him. Nevertheless, he was confident he could help the teacher repay his debt, and for the second task, He simply needed permission to skip class. So within an hour, LATCHANN provided intel for him, grabbing his motorcycle to head out in search, and located the Quaco Financial Company nested on the third floor of this ramshackle building. So he promptly headed to their lair, extremely polite, knocking on doors to get that person to come out. Both swiftly engaged in a quick back and forth. What's the deal? Looking for someone? Looking for who? Looking for you. And then quickly concluded the game there. He delivered a swift kick, sending him flying backward, crashing onto a nearby table, flattening it. While he cheered them on, those with knives wielded knives, those with guns wielded guns, swiftly trying to kick and punch back to give him a chance to let off steam. Immediately, a bored thug lunged at him, only to be met by his boss's frying pan, sending him crashing into the wall, becoming an exhibit of macabre art, transformed into a caring mother embracing a child, snatching the super-fast binoculars being scrutinized below up onto the man's body. Seeing this, the remaining crew quickly grabbed their hot merchandise to dry blood, but within a minute, they all lay prone, grabbing the red-haired guy's head and pulling back a chair for him to sit on. "You've been standing too long, you must be tired," he ordered, making it clear he wasn't the one pulling the strings, but just the best person to know. So he immediately made a draft to let him know what a festival was, bending a little finger up into the sky as a signal, considering it a start, immediately revealing his name, surname, and hometown. Of course, he didn't ask, "What color underwear are you wearing today?" but only wanted to know if this person had ever been in prison. This made him hesitate and feel apprehensive, afraid to answer. Immediately, another finger was bent, causing the guy to feel pain, and he quickly replied that he had served 3 years in prison for causing injury to another person. After exchanging casual greetings, he immediately got into the main issue, wanting to know where their safe with the documents owed was hidden. After getting a bag full of money, he felt more comfortable. Making money this way was indeed fast and efficient. Indeed, he was of the same breed, not like the old man on the shirt, but at this point, it wasn't enough. So he asked, "Where are the papers for the debt they lent at exorbitant interest rates that they haven't even touched yet?" He made him fearfully sweat even more and quickly pointed out that everything was in the cupboard, in the cabinet behind. He quickly grabbed the documents from inside to search, and when he saw the name of the head teacher, he immediately threw a box of matches, burning all the stacks of papers. Upon seeing this, the ringleader immediately put on a show. "Do you know who Tao's boss is? He won't spare you for sure." But he countered with a shocking question. "Do you know who your own grandfather is?" Even if it was his great-grandfather, he still wouldn't know who he was, wearing his hat low. Lightly, he asked for the guest's phone. Of course, not to jot down contact information for faux beau, but to snatch all the phones. Once he had them all, he tossed them out the window without remorse. Meanwhile, the heads of their gang were dining at a roadside cafe, and news quickly reached their leader. So he pondered incessantly, considering who had dared to mess with their turf. Immediately, he mobilized 500 of his men, ready to turn this place upside down if necessary to find the troublemaker. Then, he drunkenly ordered his driver to return home, but with a bit of aimless wandering. He slept for about 10 minutes before realizing this wasn't the way home. He knew his place had fallen into someone else's hands. So he lit a cigarette and offered one to the other person. But after being refused, he quickly took advantage of the opportunity to open the window and scout. He discovered he'd been taken to the outskirts. Quickly, he pulled out a wad of cash from his pocket. That was all he had left. If the bandits wanted to rob him, having money might spare him. But when TRANNAC mentioned his name, it made him break out in a cold sweat, knowing he was surely being targeted. He tried to force a smile, but inwardly, he was terrified. He wanted to offer more money to let him go, but before he could even reach into his pocket to grab his phone and call his crew, he was kicked in the gut. In this desolate place, it took an hour for his men to find him. By then, they had already dug his grave. Immediately, they pulled the car back, fully equipped to bury him alive at any moment. He asked for a cigarette to ease his dry mouth and mentioned their boss's mistress, who had been begging for a child for 5 years. This terrified the fat man to the point of turning pale. Little did he know, this matter could also be investigated. He pretended to be busy, probably needing to go relax and enjoy himself. He called a few girls to come and have fun. Immediately, TRANNAC understood his meaning. Tomorrow, I'll instruct the ticket buyer to send your family to Thailand for a vacation, 10 days away from this place. Achieving his goal, he didn't want to lift a finger. He opened the car door for him to call his own ride home. Seeing TRANNAC leave, he breathed a sigh of relief. But then he turned around and saw a gigantic hole that had been dug long ago. If he hadn't followed his orders earlier, he might have been buried alive by now. He immediately called his subordinates, telling them to return and not to investigate the person who attacked them any further. At this moment, Mr. Liu was feeling very relaxed and happy because the bribe money he had received from TRANNAC before finally had a use. When the cashier reported a shortage of funds, he hurriedly took out $6 in small bills, but in fact, there was a shortage of $50 because there were only $8 left in the card. In the end, he could only go outside with a tiny plastic bag in hand. Just then, he suddenly saw the department head passing by and assumed he was there to rent a room, smiling slyly. However, he hadn't taken 3 steps before seeing the familiar figure of the villain TRANNAC quickly following behind, even faster than a ghost. It turned out that the department head wasn't there for leisure, but to meet the wretched face of Mr. Dao. The two seemed to have met 15 minutes before, but unexpectedly, he shamelessly sought out the department head's wife for an entire year. It turns out that this brazen individual targeted the department, where Mrs. KHAKH worked, went there to flirt, and took the opportunity to persuade her to participate in some fraudulent projects, leading to significant losses and resulting in substantial debt. After letting Mrs. KKAKH taste the sweetness, he immediately coaxed her into opening a foreign account, claiming it would bring profits but only led to losses. By that time, she could only kneel down, beg, and cry, hoping that Mr. Dao would help her, because it wasn't just her own debt, but the entire company's that was at stake. This was all part of the despicable plan of that scoundrel, as no one would be bold enough to take such a risk without a safety net. Mr. Dao had assured her that the investment was guaranteed to succeed because he had inside information. This false confidence had led her to greedily invest a large sum. It turned out that he had orchestrated all this to take revenge for an incident 10 years ago when she chose the department head over going abroad with him. But of course, his return this time wasn't for that woman. The department head immediately understood and was utterly devastated, unable to accept the reality. Given Mr. Dao's current status, even supermodels had to line up for him. He didn't need to come back to pursue an old, suffering woman. It was because, despite his age and countless affairs with many women, he still had no children, so he returned. The department head immediately denied, "KHAKHA is my child." But he was awakened by the reality Mr. Dao revealed. There was no need for a DNA test. Just looking at her face was enough to understand she was Mr. Dao's child. He realized he had been raising another man's child. Memories flooded back to him, from when she was just a fetus in her mother's womb to the days when father and daughter were inseparable. Although he knew the truth, he couldn't accept it and had always considered KHAKHA his biological daughter. However, after the business failure, her mother returned to ask for his help. He had immediately set aside his pride to borrow money from everywhere to cover the debts. The other night, he brought the money, sacrificing his last shred of dignity, hoping Mr. Dao would help smooth things over. But it was all in vain. Mr. Dao's goal was to claim his only daughter. Mr. Dao had orchestrated everything, laughing as he declared, "If you don't believe me, go ahead and do a DNA test." Then he looked at his watch, confident that his arranged person had arrived. At that moment, both were stunned when the person who entered was his own wife. He grabbed her, demanding to know whose child KHAKK was. But she denied everything, insisting, "I don't know. I don't know anything." Enraged, the department head slapped Mr. Dao, feeling immense pain himself. He turned to his wife, questioning her, "KHAKK is your child, isn't she?" But he was completely devastated when she immediately knelt down and begged for forgiveness. It turned out she married the department head to cover her shame. Instead of exploding with anger, he seemed to accept it, as if the scene had satisfied him enough, and he took his wife away. But Mr. Dao wasn't done. He threatened with the company's records, saying he would have KHA's mother imprisoned. He then pulled out a black card with $1 million, offering to buy their daughter and send her to live in another country. He gave them a deadline of 3 days to sign the papers, with one last chance to decide. When he returned, he laughed heartily, not because he could take the daughter, but because he thoroughly enjoyed the misery of the two people. However, just as he stepped outside, he was startled because he saw TRANNAC sitting there like a statue, holding a loaded gun pointed straight at him. Immediately, he adopted a humble demeanor, offering money and gold. But seeing that TRANNAC wasn't interested in money, he knew he was doomed. He rushed outside, screaming for help. "Somebody, help! He's going to kill me!" However, before he could reach the door, he was instantly paralyzed, unable to control his body. With just a snap of TRANNAC's fingers, he found himself struggling to breathe, losing all his strength. Lee couldn't help but pity his fate. He had come here to ruin a meticulously laid plan. TRANNAC spoke. "The department head is a good man who wants to live a peaceful life with his family. And yet, your despicable face keeps haunting him. Did he dig up your ancestors' graves in a past life?" His sharp gaze terrified the man, who hurriedly picked up his phone, desperately seeking a way to save himself. He promised to return to his country immediately and leave the daughter alone, instructing his associates to destroy all documents related to KHA's mother. But his attempt to show goodwill was futile. TRANNAC could see through him. Being a former villain himself, he knew that true forgiveness wouldn't come easily. Only dead men don't plot. TRANNAC, suffocating the man, who had taken a hot bath and downed a strong drink earlier. When found, it would be concluded that he died of a sudden blood rush to the brain. TRANNAC didn't forget to offer some parting advice. When you reach the Grand River and drink the water, remember in your next life not to bully good people. After that, he went back and saw the department head's bicycle. Although he didn't intend to steal, he borrowed the bike. Meanwhile, a bald man lounging nearby suddenly felt an ominous twitch in his eye. Sure enough, he saw TRANNAC approaching and immediately sat upright, preparing to enjoy the show. His underling, not understanding the situation, thought it was just some random person and started to raise his voice. Immediately, he was kicked by the bald guy, twisting his ankle, cursing, "Damn it! Didn't you see my ancestors sitting here?" Instantly, he changed his tone, becoming extremely deferential. When he learned that TRANNAC wanted to use the place to wait for someone, he quickly made tea, poured water, and massaged TRANNAC's feet with more skill than any professional. Finally, the department head passed by. TRANNAC waved and called out, "Hey, handsome, come here and chat for a bit." He lied smoothly, saying he was just working part-time there. He introduced the bald guy as a very kind owner, making the bald guy turn pale, not understanding what was happening but playing along. It turned out the department head had lost his bike and was looking for another one, as walking was too exhausting for his age. TRANNAC quickly found a $200 bike, removed the price tag, and arbitrarily reduced the price to $80. Seeing the bald guy cooperating well, he immediately suggested talking about banking records and introduced the bald guy as someone who offered loans with very low interest rates. He confidently presented himself as someone who just wanted to lend a helping hand to those in need, instantly gaining the department head's trust. After he left, TRANNAC praised the bald guy for his good performance. His wife entered, opening a briefcase full of cash. The bald guy turned pale. "Boss, I want to do honest business, not rob and kill." TRANNAC replied, "Who has time for that nonsense? Your job is to lure the department head with this $200 loan, not with his house deed or safe. Offer the lowest interest rate possible, letting him pay it back gradually over 10 years if necessary. The more attractive the offer, the more likely he'll agree." But the bald guy felt something was off with this amount of money. It was indeed a lot, consisting of 300,000 yuan. 200,000 was for the loan, and the rest was for the bicycle and motorcycle expenses from the other day. plus some extra for the bald guy. The bald guy, moved to tears, hugged TRANNAC's leg, crying loudly. Seeing his boss acting like a devoted servant made the other lackey question if this was some kind of strange loyalty test. TRANNAC confidently replied, "My intuition never fails. When you see a thick thigh, hold on tight. You'll rise to success like a kite meeting the wind." At that moment, the city's investment office had just signed a contract with a large foreign enterprise, but there was one condition. They agreed to let a student from their country enroll in a local school. This seemed like an easy task, but the catch was that the student wanted to enroll in one of the worst schools in the city. At this point, Officer Anderson had intervened, swiftly moving from the airport to the police station. His sole purpose is to investigate the real cause of the Dao family's death, yet no additional evidence was found. They had gone to such lengths because one member of the Ho family was a gold digger, earning money for their suburban associates. They wanted two things: credit and expenditure bills, as well as recent contact numbers. Within an hour, it was discovered that this Dao character was somehow related to the head of the family. However, the other end of the line affirmed that it was just an ordinary family. Therefore, an order was issued. If nothing was found within 3 days, they would return home immediately. And now, TRANNAC took KAKKA back to her house because the child suddenly had a fever. Upon hearing the signal phrase, the lights turned green. My parents are not home, yet you don't seem to pay attention. Instead, you just silently celebrate in your heart. Maybe the head of the household went to where the bald one was to borrow money. Upon entering, I immediately sensed that there was someone inside and became alert. But my mind only thought about flies or ants, not about the possible danger. I pushed my beak out, expecting a response, but he just shook his head, seemingly about to drop it. Then, realizing that he shouldn't sleep, he asked, "Where's the fever medicine?" Mai hurried into the room to get the medicine, while Enerson followed. Leaning on her relaxed shoulder, he concluded that I was just an ordinary person who had accomplished something significant. Not only did I write, but I also had a VIP Pro Max. When I didn't need to look at the ceiling, I could still determine that the other person was a master. Moreover, I knew the nationality of the foreigner. After finding the medicine, she stood up and left the room. He'd also quickly climbed onto the ceiling, sticking to it like a spider. After giving the medicine to KHAKHA, I immediately sensed that the person had left the house and rushed to the window to see if he had fled through this route. Mar felt excited and quickly ran down to catch him, while gold rained down from above. As for Enerson, he had already removed the head of that household from suspicion, without realizing that the bald one was cleaning outside the window like a tail. When he noticed and turned to look outside, the person had already disappeared. So, he flew straight over to the roadside and had a bowl of noodles to satisfy his hunger. Who would have thought that he would turn out to be Anderson from the APIS organization? Should I bury him or not? After all, in a previous life, I had arranged a grade for him once. APIS was a Class B organization in the underground world, established over 15 years ago. It possessed several extraordinary abilities and powers. The strongest was known as the Captain, possessing the abilities of a knight. Additionally, the organization required a role known as the Gold Digger to facilitate exchanges and provide financial support for their operations. At this moment in his past life, because Anderson had angered TRANNAC's ferocious temper, it led to that colorful ending for him. Yet, in this life, that guy still had the nerve to mess with him. However, after some thought, TRANNAC decided to spare him that wretched life, fearing it might affect their boss. Anyway, they wouldn't touch him. For more than half of this life, he wanted to live a normal life, change professions, not get involved with the underworld again. At this moment, he was enjoying his life with enthusiasm, passionately playing basketball in his youth, his dashing goals causing all the girls to swoon. KHAKHA also knew how to impress others. Instead of regular energy drinks, he prepared a hot bottle of herbal tonic. Suddenly, a group of young ruffians arrived with all sorts of strange weapons, boasting loudly that their leader was TRANNAC. But before they could crow, they were immediately interrupted by Dom Diom, who rushed in and grabbed TRANNAC, leaving him puzzled as to why this tall guy was here. He hadn't even found enough wives yet. Did he have to die here for being too greedy? And he immediately shifted blame onto Haonam, making a fuss while waiting for this long-awaited fight, which Lao approached at lightning speed. Just one knee strike, and that guy was lying helpless on the ground. Ma Lin whispered orders if he didn't want to die. He begged him to take him to the hospital. So he immediately seized that excuse to carry the guy away, leaving his 2 wives behind, unable to keep up. But they didn't give up, both relentlessly pushing and pulling everywhere, while Diom seemed to be on the verge of passing out. From the shadows, a hand reached out, gagged the guy, and dragged him in. It was TRANNAC. While he had reluctantly dumped Haonam in the trash bin, he couldn't understand why Diom was here. It was too early now, of course. The guy had relied on the symbol on his jacket, so he asked his mom to transfer him here. Just now, he was filling out an application for enrollment in the principal's office, and then he saw him, so he hurried down. The teacher had no way to save him. TRANNAC promptly laid out some rules. Firstly, no one should mention that he had saved Dom's entire family. Secondly, after making a request, one should immediately turn away and leave, as there was another pressing matter to deal with. At this moment, KHA was acknowledging that they were only friends, despite no previous confession of feelings. Yet, she assumed on her own that she was someone else's girlfriend. When TRANNAC returned and kindly offered her a tissue, she bombarded him with questions. Luckily, Mr. Liu arrived just in time to save him from the interrogation. While the principal was searching for him everywhere, he was busy berating the parents of the students for bringing weapons onto the school grounds. As soon as he saw TRANNAC, he vented his anger about their previous confrontation without listening to reason, accusing him of causing trouble with them, even though he was the one reprimanded by the council. TRANNAC's attitude wasn't any better, responding briefly before turning and leaving for home, completely relaxed and carefree, avoiding KHA's annoying questions. However, that guy was even more cunning, going home crying to his father, which led to the headmaster inviting him over for tea. He couldn't disclose the truth about his encounter with Diom, so he could only say he was working at a nearby shop and helped fix her broken-down car on the street. Thus, they became acquainted. But don't think that by doing so, he would defend him. Instead, he was happy to see the two of them together, wanting them to become a couple so that his daughter could play at being lovesick. That way, he could protect himself from being taken advantage of. On the day of the exam, when he intended to return, KHA immediately followed him to see him off. And yet, she took advantage of the opportunity to kiss TRANNAC, leaving him standing there alone, handsome but miserable. So the next day, Diom was assigned to the same class as TRANNAC for the exam, and the teacher arranged for him to sit next to him. Immediately, KHA became jealous and made up a very noble excuse, saying that as a foreign student who hadn't mastered Chinese yet, he couldn't sit at the back of the class. Seeing the girls fiercely competing for his attention, LATHANH quickly rescued his buddy by offering Diom his seat, and then moved to sit next to TRANNAC. Once settled, the virtual rumors quickly prompted his classmate to strike up a conversation, but Diom promptly silenced him by pulling out a peculiar pen case with an image of a praying mantis engraved on it. During lunchtime, KHA persisted in her attempts to annoy him, but TRANNAC just handed him a bun and advised him not to eat from the cafeteria because their rice wasn't properly cooked. However, KHA herself was holding a tray of cafeteria food, so her criticism fell flat. As soon as his mom was called away, Diom immediately appeared, eyeing the bun hungrily and asking TRANNAC to share it with him, leaving TRANNAC in a dilemma with both his wives. Just as he was feeling overwhelmed, he heard a familiar voice, none other than Haonam, who had his 2 chicken feather tufts cut off by his father. Seeing this, TRANNAC angrily slammed his chopsticks onto the ground, causing the bun to slide away. Immediately, Haonam interjected, asking how he was and throwing yesterday's memories into the trash. TRANNAC pretended to be a good person, trying to act as if he should forgive him. At the same time, Anderson had found the scent of the gold digger number 4, the guy he had let float down the river before. Naturally, this group wasn't seeking revenge. They were just cautious, suspecting someone wanted to disrupt their business. Although he didn't want to skip school, he was fed up with getting involved with women and intended to relax at the Baldy's place. Unexpectedly, he was stopped in his tracks because the place had turned into a mess, with flowers and leaves strewn about, undoubtedly destroyed by someone. Immediately, he went over to the opposite stall to investigate, only to find out that the old man had been taken away by a gang of thugs. At this moment, the leader named Lithanhson was leisurely enjoying tea during the exam. The guy at the front kept poking fun and was about to cause trouble, but when he saw trouble coming, he immediately backed off. He knew he was targeted because the boss had once been his gang leader, and now he found himself back in jail. This allowed Lithanhson to show off his power. However, they had picked the wrong person to mess with. Instantly, one of them was thrown inside, drawing everyone's attention. As they looked towards the door, they saw TRANNAC with his familiar hat, acting as the local enforcer. Seeing someone charging in, they didn't lift a finger, but instead released the rope pulling the troublemaker down into the water, cooling him off a bit. It had been a while since someone dared to intrude into their territory, so they immediately ordered their men to attack. However, as soon as one troublemaker jumped in, he fell straight into TRANNAC's hands without even moving. A strand of TRANNAC's hair had instantly pulled him down into the water, while the rest met the same fate. The leader of their gang now realized that this wasn't someone he should have messed with and promptly submerged himself. Winning meant becoming king, losing meant begging for mercy. Unfortunately, he wasn't a long-legged beauty, so he was immediately kicked down along with his comrades. Thanks to the floor, he could now sit there and eat noodles, but the support he had once relied on was no longer there, making it difficult to maintain stability in the future. Wanting to recruit the old man's disciples to his own side would also be challenging, especially without reputation or money. Furthermore, he didn't want to live a life of merely making illicit money from buying stolen cars. He had a dream of opening an electric car dealership. This revelation made TRANNAC reconsider this person, whom he had never expected to have such foresight. 2 years later, the electric car market would boom. TRANNAC sponsored the guy with $50,000, and with his own savings of $70,000, he had enough to open a small dealership and slowly build his business. This deeply moved him, making TRANNAC feel like his reborn parent. Wanting to repay this kindness, he decided to work hard. At this moment, a young man who didn't understand life wrote a love letter to Dom. After asking if she liked him, she heartlessly tore it up. Your dad didn't like it either. Loit8 and KHAKJ witnessed this scene, realizing that no matter how much she was chased after, she couldn't compare to the skills needed to deal with TRANNAC, who was like a stalker, knowing everything about his whereabouts. So he rode his bike to his extra job. After being informed by the supervisor, it took more than an hour for the school representative to arrive. It could only be said that he was extremely filial, or perhaps foolishly so. It was hard to tell. Seeing this, he asked his buddy to fetch a jacket for the poor guy's mother. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he then rode his bike to take KHAKJ back home. Meanwhile, Dom's mother was exhausted after a long day managing her late husband's company. Just as she returned home, she noticed the moldy expression on Anderson's face as he adjusted the photos inside their house. He seemed fearless, immediately resorting to a syringe as a threat. But behind her, a woman played her cards stealthily, indicating that the syringe contained drugs. This prompted Dom's mother to confess everything about how TRANNAC had saved her family. However, they were still not ready to act. At this point, they wanted to find another gold digger to replace him, leaving the family business for her to manage. Meanwhile, TAUDIEP returned home, passing through a street where 53 beautiful women left their numbers for TRANNAC. He was indeed a master of courtship, making him break out in a cold sweat. As for the kids, they learned something from somewhere. He would definitely have to scold the principal tomorrow. He then saw Doem standing ready, and immediately after, Tiudiep, charmingly, ran over to strike up a conversation. They seemed to be on the same wavelength, each saying a sentence and the other responding, perfectly in sync. While eating together, they showed deep affection for each other. Dome also proudly boasted about her progress in pronouncing Chinese, but it was all cramped. Immediately, Tiudiep took the stage to showcase his abilities, leaving her in disbelief that she lost to a preschooler. Thus, she agreed to leave obediently with the condition that once she improved her pronunciation, she would be allowed to search for TRANNAC. With that settled, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief and enjoy a few peaceful days. However, he noticed something unusual. On the roof of the opposite house, someone was observing TRANNAC's every move. None other than Edison's man, aiming to target him, as they had identified TRANNAC as the heroic teenager appearing in the country. Regardless of the probability, the order was clear. Capture him and bring him back to the country tonight, whether he was a dangerous target or not. All the doctors and operatives within the organization were mobilized and prepared for action. Suddenly, there was a very loud buzzing sound on the other end of the line. At that moment, the person they had arranged was captured by TRANNAC. One leg stomped flat on the ground. But seeing that he still wouldn't shut up, TRANNAC gave him an extra kick, almost spilling his guts out. Very quickly, this guy's backup arrived. Ederson showed up and ordered the long-haired man to be released, then contacted the Black Panther to take the child hostage. Upon receiving the order, he descended from the wall and entered TRANNAC's house, where Tiudiep was still watching TV, being very well behaved. But the biggest mistake of Ederson's life was threatening TRANNAC. TRANNAC swiftly delivered a powerful kick, sending the long-haired man out of this world. As Ederson ordered the killing of Tiudiep, TRANNAC used his superpowers to stop all of the Black Panther's actions, causing him to freeze solid. TRANNAC then dragged the giant body of the Black Panther towards him with a double kin kick. Quickly, the power that could capture a leopard within 20 meters made the Black Panther realize it was the short-haired controller beside him. She used sonic waves to attack, but it was nothing. Just a glance from TRANNAC caused her to fall in pain, bleeding due to the intense pressure. While the superpower battle was ongoing, Ederson foolishly grabbed a dagger and charged forward, but he was quickly brushed aside. "No rush, baby," TRANNAC said, "just lie there and wait." He then turned his attention to the ugly-faced doctor, saying, "Hello, old lady, long time no see," which made the doctor panic and stab him with a surgical knife. However, with just 2 fingers, TRANNAC stopped the blade, using his superpower to break the doctor's handcuffs. It turned out that the doctor's ability was controlling knives, but TRANNAC had known this from a previous life. So, he easily dodged, captured the knife, and returned it straight into the doctor's throat. Quadra kill. At this point, Ederson realized he had messed with the wrong person and tried to run, but it wasn't that easy. "I'd already spared you, but you came to me yourself," TRANNAC said as he grabbed Ederson by the throat. Pentakill. After that, he gathered all the wrecked bodies into a car. Originally, he had a peaceful evening planned, but now he had to deal with this mess. He vented his anger on Hyun Vu when he called. "Come and collect their bodies before they become fish food," TRANNAC said, making Hyun Vu struggle to remember who he was. Then he got a name, DIEMLA, and went back. TIUDIEP went into the bedroom. That guy, having lost a group of elite subordinates, probably wouldn't do anything stupid and hurried into the bathroom to take a shower, releasing a red fluid. It was because he hadn't reached his peak level from his previous life. But perhaps his current level could be considered lucky, as the power he had in his past life was deemed a glitch during an experiment. At this moment, Doem immediately showed off by bringing ginseng to nourish TRANNAC. Seeing beautiful girls surround him, the other students couldn't help but be envious. Besides having a handsome face, being tall, and very attractive with a fit body, what else did he have? The author was indeed unfair. Seeing TRANNAC being cared for so meticulously, KAKK refused to be outdone and brought gifts as well. But just looking at them, it was clear they were from the headmaster. Though worried she might get scolded by him, she couldn't stand the ugly fashion style. TRANNAC planned to take a few days off due to having work and needing to bring in a shipment of cars to avoid his wives. Spending a few days in Nepal's capital, he handed a bundle of money to the cashier, informing them he needed to get to Lucca urgently, then to ABC. But the cashier only put on a cold face, saying they would arrange a helicopter and some others, but couldn't guarantee a smooth journey. After receiving another bundle of money, the cashier's eyes lit up, assuring him the best seat. When he arrived at Lucca Airport, the two Chimrui sisters were already there, waiting to depart. At the same time, the group leader finally saw TRANNAC's helicopter arriving. After handing over his fake identification papers and passport for verification, they shook hands. This was merely a ticket sale for a ride, not a business transaction or partnership. Therefore, any incidents during the journey would be his responsibility alone. At this moment, the older sister sitting next to him kept assessing him, thinking he was just a novice who had just started learning to climb mountains and arrived late, making her openly dislike him. Then, TRANNAC struck up a conversation. It seemed this girl's nickname was Chimrui, as she was a magazine model, so it was normal for others to know her. That nickname would later become the codename of his third wife, in memory of her sister who died saving her. In his previous life, there was an event that caused the whole family to die, leaving only her alive. Back then, they participated in a mountain climbing trip, but suddenly there was a snowstorm. Just as they were about to reach the shelter, her younger brother started his despicable act, cutting the rope and dragging his siblings into the abyss. Only by doing this could he inherit the family's wealth. With only the two sisters relying on each other, he still wouldn't relent. Seeing this, the older sister immediately cut her connection with Chimrui and directly lunged at her wretched brother, taking him down with her to protect her younger sister. Though Chimrui survived, the family's assets were continuously siphoned off by one person after another. Unable to bear it any longer, she took out a dagger and killed the one trying to seize the last remaining house with family memories. As a result, Chimrui was thrown into prison. Coincidentally, TRANNAC had a mission in his past life to kill the warden. When he broke in, he saw the warden training Chimrui like a duckling, deforming such a beautiful flower. He couldn't stand it and shot the warden in the left chest, causing her to writhe in pain, trying to crawl outside for help. But Chimrui, fueled by 6 years of hatred, immediately broke her neck. That was when TRANNAC rescued Chimrui. As they arrived at their destination, they quickly said their goodbyes. But before leaving, TRANNAC gave Chimrui a piece of chocolate that she loved in her previous life. Going back to when the whole family was climbing together, the wretched brother cut the family's rope. But this time, Chimrui also fell into the abyss. As predicted, TRANNAC had been waiting below and caught her safely. When she opened her eyes, she found herself lying in a tent with him, who had already prepared hot water. Suddenly remembering something, she sat up and cried out in panic, calling for her parents and sister. He gently reminded her that her family was not here, not even her cruel uncle. She recalled the exact details. In 1997, her parents had died in a mountaineering accident due to bad weather. In 1999, her older sister, her only remaining relative, attempted to fulfill their parents' wish by conquering the mountain, but also lost her life. In 2000, Chimrui shot her uncle because he wanted to sell the family property to pay off his debts. Although she was acquitted, she suffered severe psychological issues afterward. The whole family died in a tragic accident, and since then, Chimrui had created different personalities to imagine her family was still with her. After assuming her sister's identity, she joined the mountaineering group, but halfway through, she experienced hallucinations and used her own knife to cut the rope. Because of this, in the past life, she injured 2 people in the group and was committed to a mental institution. His mission back then was to eliminate CAI, not the warden. But seeing the warden's extreme cruelty, he couldn't stand it and took action. All of this unfolded before her eyes, making her break down and cry. Although he couldn't help CAI save her family, he wanted to ensure she never again endured the perversion of that prison. Standing before her parents' graves, CAI took off the necklaces engraved with her family's names, letting go of her deep-rooted obsessions to move forward. Deciding to start over, CAI chose to donate all her assets to a mountaineering charity. She asked if this goodbye meant they would never meet again, hesitating as she watched him leave. Unable to hold back, she immediately rushed to him, saying that no matter where he went, she would follow, without asking for anything or needing to know who he was. But for TRANNAC, he didn't want her to suffer in this life either. He wished for her to enjoy a beautiful life. Smiling as he watched CAI walk away, he felt that this was enough for this life. At this moment, KHAKK was still sulking because TRANNAC had forgotten her birthday. Suddenly, a rock was thrown at the window. When he saw a woman with a pair of large breasts, he was so startled that he accidentally broke the window in the headmaster's office. After seeing off the principal and Mr. Liu, TRANNAC quickly went over, carrying supplies to repair the window. Having seen the school's people, he could guess that they wanted to extend the headmaster's contract because the most outstanding teacher at the school was him. But seeing the headmaster's melancholic appearance, TRANNAC couldn't help but be concerned. It seemed that the headmaster was still bothered by the loan shark incident, which had tarnished his reputation at the school. Coincidentally, there would be a spring outing on Saturday, so TRANNAC planned to cheer up the headmaster to put his mind at ease. Seeing TAUDIEP playing with HAIQA made LATHAN jealous. Having a younger sister turned out to be useful for picking up girls, but TRANNAC thought they were still too young and naive, saying, "Getting involved with women only leads to headaches and won't accomplish anything significant." He left this group under the care of his trusted friend, saying he had important matters to attend to. It turned out that his important matter was flirting. Meanwhile, HAONAM was looking very lifeless, having moved on from the gangster life with TUANKIET's daughter, and now obsessed with a Korean actor with slicked back hair. "Hey, do you know how to swim?" TRANNAC asked, using his superpower to push the boy into the lake. He watched as HAONAM struggled, shouting, "Headmaster, someone is trying to commit suicide out of sadness." Seeing this, the headmaster rushed over at lightning speed, but TRANNAC held LATHANH back to prevent him from playing the hero. The headmaster quickly jumped into the water to rescue HAONAM. Due to his age and weakness, he slipped, but fortunately, TRANNAC was always watching and managed to pull him up in time. Praising the headmaster, all the other students also praised his righteous action. TRANNAC called Dom Dioam, whose family was in business and surely knew how to spread the news. The event quickly made headlines in major newspapers and television, continuously praising and restoring the headmaster's reputation and trust to what it once was. At this moment, HAONAM felt a sense of horror with the misfortune that TRANNAC brought upon him. There was no other way for him but to carry the amulet on his person. Yet he couldn't rid himself of his many flaws when THAKK arrived at another place. Of course, there was nowhere else but TRANNAC's workplace. When he realized that it was too late, HAONAM tried to disguise himself as a bystander. But he could only shed tears, perhaps because his report had been leaked to the authorities. That's why he was easily identified. Then, there was a car parked right by the roadside. Witnessing both of them conversing in front of the car dealership, a high school boy and a beauty queen. He quickly mistook them for TRANNAC and rushed to abduct KHAKK. Immediately, they disappeared into the car. These people targeted him, and the thug fantasized that his own fame had spread far and wide, so his enemies came to find him. He foolishly believed that his friend could not possibly endanger the life of the principal's daughter who had saved him, so he stupidly followed them. When TRANNAC returned, he heard that KHAKK had come looking for him, but saw no sign of her. Instead, he noticed her mother's purse lying on the ground, crushed in the middle of the road. Then, he realized that the mastermind behind everything was none other than someone named Lulai, who sought revenge for being thrown into the pond before. This bewildered the young man, not understanding the current situation. However, when told to sit down, he obediently complied. Lai became furious and slapped him in the face. It was the first time in his life that he had endured such humiliation. Back when he was thrown into the pond, he thought his lungs would burst from drinking too much water, and the young man didn't understand what he had done wrong. He wasn't teasing or provoking anyone. He simply advised the old man to drink more hot water since he was elderly, which angered the old man to the point of spitting out his tea. When TRANNAC heard this, he valued his integrity even more.